This pandemic has been a lesson for world leaders. They should stick to their job and let the experts do theirs. Politicians must listen to scientists and doctors and do what needs to be done, not what they'd like to do. But last year we saw some leaders dabble in medicine. They pretended to be experts themselves. Some of it was so outrageous it was borderline hilarious, like Donald Trump's idea to inject people with bleach. Across the Atlantic, Boris Johnson apparently had a similar idea. But instead of bleach, Johnson reportedly proposed injecting the Wuhan virus itself. And I'm not making this up. This was reportedly the British Prime Minister's grand idea to get himself injected on live television. And if you're waiting for some genius explanation, there isn't one. Boris Johnson regularly downplayed the virus. He insisted on shaking hands with patients. He thought people were panicking without reason. And what better way to assure your citizens than getting injected yourself? Now, unlike Donald Trump, Johnson did not say any of this in public. We are told that his outrageous ideas were reserved for cabinet meetings. So how did they leak? Thanks to this man, Dominic Cummings. He was Boris Johnson's right-hand man, the most powerful advisor at Downing Street. But in November last year, he was abruptly fired. The entire episode was murky. Most reports talk about a fallout between this man and Johnson's fiancée, Carrie Simmons. Whatever be the reason, Cummings was out. And soon after, he turned rogue. On Wednesday, this bitter feud played out in public. Cummings testified before a parliamentary committee, and to say that he pulled no punches would be an understatement, because Dominic Cummings spared no one. His testimony makes one thing clear: Britain was a train wreck waiting to happen. It is sheer luck that they ended up where they are right now. This exchange between Cummings and the committee chair really sums it up.
In terms of the Prime Minister, the basic thought was that in February the Prime Minister regarded this as just a scare story. He described it as the new swine flu.
Did you tell him it wasn't?
Certainly, but the view of various officials inside Number 10 was, if we have the Prime Minister chairing COBRA meetings and he just tells everyone it's swine flu, don't worry about it, I'm going to get Chris Whitty to inject me live on TV with coronavirus so everyone realises it's nothing to be frightened of, that would not help actually serious planning.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson did eventually get infected, and it wasn't anything like the swine flu. He spent 3 nights in the ICU. Doctors contemplated putting him on a ventilator. That experience changed Prime Minister Johnson to some extent. At least he wasn't shaking hands anymore. But what about the damage that was already done? Boris Johnson failed his first big test as Prime Minister, and if you ask Dominic Cummings, he shouldn't have been Prime Minister in the first place.
Like in any sensible, rational government, it is completely crazy that I should have been in such a senior position, in my personal opinion. I'm not smart. I've not built great things in the world. It's completely crackers that someone like me should have been in there, just the same as it's crackers that Boris Johnson was in there, and that the choice at the last election was Jeremy Corbyn. The truth is that senior ministers, senior officials, senior advisors like me fell disastrously short of the standards that the public has a right to expect of its government in a crisis like this. When the public needed us most, the government failed.
That was a man often described as Boris Johnson's brain. He's openly admitting that both he and the Prime Minister failed. More than 127,000 people died because of that failure. What does Boris Johnson have to say about that? Well, he says he tried his best and that he always had the people's interest on his mind.
The handling of this pandemic has been one of the most difficult things this country has had to do for a very long time. And none of the decisions have been easy. To go into a lockdown is a traumatic thing for a country. To deal with a pandemic on this scale has been appallingly difficult, and we've at every stage tried to minimise loss of life, to save lives, to protect the NHS, and we have followed the best scientific advice that we can, Mr. Speaker.
But this doesn't answer the important questions. Did Johnson actually suggest getting infected on television? Did he delay announcing a lockdown? Did the Health Secretary repeatedly lie to the British public? It is easy to lose sight of these questions, especially now with things returning to normal in Britain. But if world leaders played trial and error with people's lives, the least they can demand is the right to know. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.